reckoning of the climate is on your front doorstep. You just have not been paying attention.
Alex, melting ice caps, warmer oceans, intense storms, heat waves, droughts, floods, and wildfires.
Wildflowers.
Yes, I love wildflowers.
Ooh, that sounds good at the end.
Wildfires.
Was it Walt Whitman or Ralph Waldo Emerson that says it's
Ralph
not
Waldo.
it's not what you're looking at that matters, it's what you see.
Severe hurricanes.
Yeah. When a lot of people are not affected by huge torrential flooding in the United States.
The natural disaster happened to those other people.
It happened 12,000 miles away. It does not matter to me.
It doesn't affect me.
Yeah. Well, guess what? It does affect you. Let's talk about how this affects you.
I love this.
New York Times pushed out an article with some data that was coming from George Mason University and two researchers for the Institute of Climate Change, something like that. What is the institute? Before I just absolutely botch that.
Climate change communication at the Edward W. Maybach at the Center for Climate Change Communication at George Mason University.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so what they want to do is they want to show the effects of climate change that may be happening somewhere else on the globe. And you'd be like, oh, that doesn't really affect me because it's like an environmental thing.
Right.
Until you realize the actual effect on your health and your mental state and the possibility of other illnesses born of higher temperatures.
And, this is a prime example. We had a pandemic and it's affected, it's physically been horrific and hundreds of thousands of people have died. But when we look at the mental aspects, I guarantee you 80% of the population or more were affected mentally by COVID. And you talk to people and they're like, barely survived 2020, and then they'll go mentally, wherever they're at, especially here in the United States, everybody's always, I was just talking to somebody and they were saying that, like the mental stress that I had, and, I had depression before, and then it was even worse, and then the isolation, no human contact, only communicating through cell phones, not being able to go to family get-togethers and holidays because you're worried about, grandma may get COVID from one of us.
You wonder why productivity drops, suicide rates increased.
Dude, teenagers are taking a hit.
Yeah.
Not going to high school, not having that whole function, staying at home constantly on their phones, watching Netflix, being bored.
Dealing with their parents. I
iPads.
know the feeling.
Yes.
I'm here for you.
So it does affect us.
Yes, it does. And it's all of those, not direct, but indirect effects of these things that happen. So what's great about the data that they were talking about here are the indirect effects of occurrences from climate instability. So one of the ones, just for a poignant example here that is close to home, we have the California wildfires. Mm-hmm. Okay, people are like, great, whatever, wildfire's not bothering me. But when you have the particulate that is in the air coming and affecting the lungs of young children, people with asthma, and also reducing the amount of blood oxygen that's getting up to the brain because you're essentially suffocating the lungs,
right,
is decreasing the mental state of that individual within their own mental capacity to operate in a natural biological function. And on top of that, you're arresting their lungs from doing the function they want to do best. So your overconsumption of your material items, increasing a carbon footprint, doing all these other things that may have increased the temperature somewhere in Indonesia, that changed with the trade winds coming over here and then preventing rain from dropping in California, causing a forest fire to occur, is actually affecting the asthma and the mental states of human beings in the state of California.
Well, this report also said heart disease and stroke rise.
Well, of course they're going to rise.
And how many people do we know that's had strokes or have died of heart disease?
Yeah, and think about it. If your lungs are the things that drive you, if you can't get the right balance of gases through those lungs to then enrich your blood, you're done. You're donezo. It's going to strain the heart, and for people that are already with a strained heart, which is probably 40% of the United States, if you look at the data from the American Heart Association, well, then that's going to lead to systemic effects that were indirect from the aspects of climate change. Climate change is physically killing you quicker when you didn't think it wasn't at your front doorstep.
Yeah, they even said high levels of air pollution is an increased risk of developing dementia.
Yeah, because if, no one really knows the real true cause for dementia, but they're seeing that some of these things that are driving it, so stopping that blood-brain barrier, if there's an issue with that, they've seen that may be a link to dementia. And if you are inhibiting that by inhibiting the lungs because of poor air quality,
right,
because of an issue of climate instability, hello.
Yeah, and they're talking about, and we have a lot of unsafe air quality issues in a lot of different cities here. They're talking about young children growing up and developing with that pollution. They're talking about pregnant women having issues with fetuses, older adults, people with chronic illnesses and disabilities. And then we don't even think about this, the people with fewer resources and outdoor workers.
What about guys that work outdoors all the time?
Yeah.
Constantly. You know, even if you're a window washer in a city, you're literally outside just getting hit. You're up in the smog all day long, huffing this stuff. Here's another thing. What happens when temperatures become warmer? Nobody likes ticks.
No.
I personally don't like ticks. I don't like pulling them off dogs, nothing of that nature. But there's so many issues with tick-borne illnesses.
Yes.
Okay? There's so many issues with mosquito-borne illnesses.
Yeah, that's the number one animal that kills people is mosquitoes.
Yeah, so one of the highest pests, actually, it's a lack of food causing malnutrition and then the effect of mosquito coming in and affecting a body that's malnourished. Okay, so it's actually a lack of food, lack of nutrition. So the mosquito is secondary.
I wonder if we could take that same data and correlate it with COVID deaths and immune systems.
Oh, interesting.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, I didn't even consider that. But the effect here is that as things begin to increase in temperature in areas where it typically wasn't there, these pests, these disease-carrying things are allowed to fester. They thrive in these environments.
So you got Rocky Mountain spotted fever increase. You got the West Nile disease.
Yep.
The mosquito-borne. So you got ticks and mosquitoes.
Yeah, you got triple E. You got all this different stuff that's coming in. And then, but the thing is, overconsumption in China, India, the rest of the globe is also changing the climate. And all of those people that are interacting with this, causing this problem, are having a direct effect on you in the United States and your children and your children's children.
Yeah, they were even talking about food and water supplies, especially with organisms with heat. So during heat waves, how the food poisoning, microbial contamination of drinking water, how that happens when you raise the temperature.
If you have slightly stagnant water, okay, and you give it an environment of just the right amount of sunlight and a couple other things with like oxygen for whatever for the photosynthesis, what that does is it allows these algae blooms to grow, poisonous, deadly ones. And then all these other microbes start to thrive in that warm environment where there's more bacteria and stuff for them to feed off of, especially if you're a larger microbe. Right? And so that's going to be a bad thing. Or then, for instance, you have flooding in a specific area.
Yes.
Say you're in Miami.
Yes.
Walking through floodwater increases your, what was it, for disease 15
Bacterial
times?
blood infections?
Yeah, bacterial blood infections,
guys.
So
15-fold, 15 times.
Your skin's a sponge. You ever sat in a bathtub? Imagine if you're walking around in dirty, sewage-filled, hepatitis, whatever, floodwater all day long. And that's just getting soaked up through osmosis in your skin, and it's going right into your bloodstream. 15 times. So an increase in the temperature of the climate, melting ice caps, all this stuff, all the data that is screaming at you that is all under human cause, or at least a good portion of it, is having direct effects on your health, your children's health, and their future.
Yeah, and that's why we hope we scared you, because this is all true.
Yeah.
And that's why we've made climate stability number 1 on our Big 7. And I want to close this out, Alex. I think this is important. How can the average Joe, that person that's sitting in Bangladesh, that's on their smartphone, how can they reverse these issues? How can we get the climate stable? And how does TARTLE help with that? Right.
This climate instability is... the humans are the progenitor of it. Earth always wants to be in equilibrium. We've thrown it off equilibrium. So in order for us to solve the problem we created, we need to come together collectively and analyze our traits, habits, behaviors, consumptions, everything that we're doing. And we can do that by sharing that data on TARTLE, so the people that have the resources, the people that populate that research to give those answers back to the public, now have the best body of information possible to take effective action on reversing this terrible calamity we've driven ourselves into.
I love that. Well, everyone, tartle.co, TARTLE.co, sign up today. Not only earn money,
but shrink the tick population.
Yeah, I don't like ticks either.